more of them?
But that's the other side of the coin, is that there's a lot more. Yeah. All right, so we're ready to head down to the feature match here right now, where we have Alexander Hain, who we were just talking about, and Kyle Bogamus waiting to battle here in round 10 from Cincinnati. Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Cincinnati. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Randy Bueller, and we are underway on day 2 here. It's round 10. Undefeated players here. Number 11 on our top 25 pro rankings, Alexander Hain versus Kyle Bogamus. Both players on Esper here, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, there's different versions of the deck, but this is essentially an Esper mirror.
Okay.
Alexander Hain's main deck is only blue and white, but he does have Dark Betrayal and Thoughtseize in his sideboard. Kyle, on the other side, has a couple Doomblades main, couple Thoughtseizes main, so a little more devotion to the black side of the deck.
Okay. A little bit of a weird start there for Kyle. He starts off with the Hollowed Fountain and then plays the assumed freshly drawn.
No, not necessarily. He just gets more information.
I see.
No, it's, I mean, if you're going to play, if he doesn't think he's going to have anything to do on turn 2, like if he wasn't planning to pay 2 life for the Hallowed Fountain, then I like waiting. Like, you just get more information about your draw. In particular, like, what that tells me, sure, it might have been freshly drawn. It could also be that, like, he's on the edge of having enough land, like, wasn't sure whether he wanted to push a land or not.
I see. Okay. Now, does that require you knowing what your opponent is up to?
It helps.
Okay. All right, so we have a Jace Architect of Thought here for Alex, and he reveals land, syncopate, it looks like. And Kyle's going to go ahead and let him have the 2 lands here.
He takes 2 lands.
And Alex is eager to scoop those 2 lands up. I mean, we've talked about it many times in the booth here, Randy. It's all about hitting your land drops in these control mirrors.
Yes, the easiest way to figure out who's going to win the control mirror is the first guy to stop playing lands loses.
All right, so Detention Sphere to take care of Jace, but Alex has to be pretty happy with that transaction. He nets 2 cards on the deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tricky to figure out whether to fight the card drawing in this or not. I mean, a lot of these decks will be super light on counters, but they're also super light on actual victory conditions. So, I mean, game 1 in particular, it can go super long, and it can come down to just, like, don't let your opponent resolve an Aetherling.
Right.
Just everything in the game, like, let them have a Sphinx's Revelation. You can't afford to fight that because you need that precious Dissolve to fight Aetherling. I mean, in terms of permission, Kyle's got 4 Dissolve, and that's it for counters. I mean, a couple Thoughtseizes are also relevant.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's essentially what he's got to fight Alex's ability to win the game.
Players have like, so Alex got in there once with his Mutavault, but now into untapped mana, although Kyle Bogamus has missed his last 2 land drops.
No, this is definitely edge Alexander Hain here. What it does is it gives him the ability to both play a threat and defend it. Right? He can afford to start doing things on his turn without tapping out and risking anything. And Kyle is in this position where he's going to be forced to start discarding pretty soon. You know, he's going to be forced to, blow his rev for 2. I don't expect Alex to fight that. I mean, if he had that syncopate, maybe he'd sync for 1, but...
Yep. He doesn't. Now, Alex interestingly played his Hollowed Fountain untapped for the turn there.
Could absolutely be a tell. Hain's permission suite is 4 Dissolve, 2 Syncopate, and a Negate.
Okay, so he's got significantly more.
Significantly. He's
3 more?
Syncopate, Syncopate gets tricky, though, because by the time these guys get into the late game where they're actually fighting counter wars over, an Aetherling, for example, it's hard to use Syncopate.
Right.
The Negate is nice, though. I mean, he does have more. Also, I mean, it's funny, the fact that he put the Syncopate on the bottom already means he's giving away some of that edge, though. All right, so Kyle's going to fight the card drawing.
He is. Alexander Hain just completely taps out for a Sphinx's Revelation, but Kyle says,
I mean, I think he was content. If that got a Dissolve, he was okay with that trade.
Yes. And he plays another untapped Hollowed Fountain here, but this time he's going to line up, looks like an Elspeth. No, Aetherling.
See, he picked the fight on Kyle's end step.
Right. Got
the Dissolve, and he was able to untap and play Aetherling. Yeah, that Sphinx's Revelation, that was bait. This is just textbook from Alexander Hain.
Though I have to say, I mean, if Kyle just lets that Sphinx's Revelation resolve, it's no good news for him either way, right?
Well, it's not great news, but Alex is going to be discarding a lot of it. I mean, some of the cards he has in his hand are kind of trash anyway.
Right. So now...
Yeah, I mean, if if this Rev had resolved, I think Alex would have been unlikely to just tap out for Aetherling.
Right.
Does he have the dissolve? Yes, he does.
Jeez,
there you
with
go.
the dissolve backup.
Yeah, 9 mana to 7.
So Alexander Hain firmly in the driver's seat here as he gets to untap with a protected Aetherling here, and he's just going to go to town on Kyle Bong with his life total now.
So what's going on in LSV's match on the back table? I mean, we got a couple turns left, but
Randy's seen enough in game 1 here. We had a short counter battle. There's now an Aetherling on the table versus nothing.
I mean, it may have looked short, but I mean, there's a lot that went into that, right?
It's true.
Hain had to pick his spot.
That's right.
And Kyle's just going to.
And Vongos is like,
he
we're
doesn't
done
need
here.
to see anymore either.
Right.
Wow.
He might have even been looking over to see what LSV was up to.
Yeah.
So we're going to pop over there real quick, and unfortunately, it looks like we're in a similar situation that we were in the first. Yeah, it looks like they're boarding here.
Boo.
So we'll just take a look at the feature match area as a whole.
Do we know what LSV's opponent is playing? We're short 1 deck list, so.
No.
LSV's on an Esper list as well.
He is.
Sitting on 1 loss, so those guys are a match back. Can we find out who won the LSV game? See if we can get word from the judge down there. Oh, Luis won.
All right.
Good for him.
So Luis up a game. He's got 1 loss on the tournament so far?
Yeah, no, he's in decent shape. 5 undefeateds overnight. And then I think 2 others on 8-0-1.
Okay.
And then, yeah, LSV sitting not the only name in that pile up. There's definitely a number of good players on X and 1.
I saw David Ochoa.
Yes.
High on that list.
Yeah, Ochoa's top of the list on tiebreakers. Pat Cox is in that list.
Yes.
John Stern, Eric Froelich, Brad Nelson.
Jeez.
Yeah,
you weren't kidding.
No, yeah.
This is a stacked up.
LSV. Adrian Sullivan is in that list.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, those guys run down to 46th place. So
the X ones?
Yeah, they go from 8th to 46th. There's about 38 of them.
And we'll be cutting out roughly half of those after this round.
Pretty much.
For the rest of the
But, I mean, they've got a loss to give. Like, 2 losses should be safe to top 8 here. We're not big enough that an X2 is going to miss. Now, we are big enough that I don't think we'll have many people will be able to draw in the last round.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the rule of thumb at a GP is you want to get to 12-2-1.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, as these things keep going, once they go up over, 1,600 or so, yeah, that X2-1, I think, so at last week we were in Montreal, and we had slightly less than this, right? We had, 1,600? So this one's like 17 in something. Bet 100 fewer players, and there were 0 intentional draws in the last round.
Right.
There were 2 people who wound up on 12-2-1 anyway, one of whom got in.
Right.
So there was room for 1 spot in the top 8 at X2-1. There may be more spots because this is constructed. Like, you get a lot more pair downs and limited since you can only play people in the same bracket.
Right.
So, I mean, it's hard to cross over. You can't just assume the map's going to work out the same when it's constructed because you usually get cleaner pairings. So maybe it's a couple people who get an X2-1, but then again, you get 100 more players. So anyway, real point is a lot of people were hoping, the X2s coming in overnight. Smaller GP, they were thinking I need to win 5,
right,
and then I can draw in, but they need to win 6.
They need to go the distance.
They really need to run the table.
Yeah. So this is, again, we're peeking in at the Luis Scott Vargas match here.
Okay.
You see the I played a Hall of Famer pin down there. That's a telltale sign.
Go. And the Channel Fireball sleeves.
Yeah.
All signs point to LSV.
That's right. Plus, we talked about it before, but it's just weird because you can tell when people shuffle, how they do it. Like,
you recognize players by the shuffle?
Absolutely, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah,
I have not paid that much attention to their shuffle tech.
If they're on the camera a lot, I can tell you who it is.
Like, you just know their hands and their shuffle technique?
Yes, I know how they hold their hands and how they draw their cards and all that. It's really weird. There's a few people in this room that I know that way better than I know what their face looks like.
No, it is weird. I've definitely run into people who I've only sort of watched on camera, and like on camera, you don't really see their faces all that much.
It is so weird how that happens. When I first started doing coverage, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that.
Oh, is LSV playing against the Boros deck? We haven't seen one of those
on
camera yet.
No. Sitting at X1 as well? I wonder if we can find that deck list. I am curious about it. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see him on on camera or not. Interesting that Luis won that first game fairly quickly.
Yes. Here's Chandra's Phoenix. That can be trouble for the blue-white deck if you don't have Last Breath, but LSV still got a couple Last Breaths in his deck.
Right. He just used an Azorius Charm to keep that thing off his back.
2 syncopates as well. So 2 different ways to send that to the exile zone instead of the graveyard.
And now he's got
there's some tech.
Lovely little 2/3.
He said yesterday he brought that in from the sideboard against everybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's Esper Control.
Okay.
Right. Luis is Esper Control, but yeah.
Right.
He's got the. Well, we've seen lots of Archangels in sideboards. We've seen lots of. Oh, it's going to get Chained to the Rocks. Wow, the Chained to the Rocks are still in the deck against him after sideboarding. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Insane.
It's not how this was supposed to work.
Not at all.
All right, fine. I'll Detention Sphere it, says LSV.
Luis showing a lot of respect for the Chandra's
Well, I mean,
Phoenix
you're going to have to deal with it.
Yes.
If he doesn't have one of the exile effects, then yeah, he needs to put it under Detention Sphere.
And there's another Chandra's Phoenix and a Mutavault that's going to battle as well.
Hey, Rusty, can you get us a copy of the pairings? We don't know LSV's opponent's name. Always feels weird when you Detention Sphere the same card on back-to-back turns.
Yes.
Like, if only I'd waited.
Yes. Of course, that's never how it actually works out because your opponent figures that out too.
Certainly a drawback whenever you commit the second copy of a creature to the board. Dennis Taylor is Luis's opponent here.
Okay.
Yeah, these guys are table 5, so they're both sitting on 8-1 overnight. Mutavault runs into Doomblade. I mean, the game plan here for Esper is preserve your life total as much as possible and just trade cards.
Right.
If you can trade cards, stay alive, hit your land drops, then you build up the one big Sixes Revelation, or
or your sweet sideboard card, Archangel of Thune. I mean, you got to figure that if that hits once, we're about done here, right? I mean, it's
Faded Conflagration.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Oh, it sounds
right.
like Hain is mulliganing to 5 on the first table.
He's up a game against Kyle Boggamus.
Dennis Taylor, I think, has seen a lot of people sideboard in creatures against him after sideboarding.
No kidding.
Like Faded Conflagration and Chained to the Rocks.
Yes.
Those are the cards that are supposed to be dead in this matchup.
Right.
Right. Those are the cards where the Esper, like, being effectively creatureless, is supposed to punish people for playing cards like that. Yeah, Dennis Taylor was not sideboarding him out. He, I think, knew what was up.
You think he got traumatized by some Archangel of Thunes yesterday or something, and it's just like, I'm not.
Every single one of these lists sideboards creatures now.
Yes.
I mean, we saw Hain do it.
Even Brimaz, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean,
that's a War Leader's Helix.
It's usually Archangel plus something cheaper. Archangel and a 3-drop seems to be the, and maybe you have 3 or 4, maybe you have, 6 or 7. But if every Esper deck is just always going to sideboard in creatures, then.
Now, he's representing Skullcrack here, right? Do you notice that he didn't attack with his Mutavault here?
Oh, nice.
All right. In this case, it looks like he's got Boros Charm to hit Luis. And there's a Revelation in response.
Oh, so just LSV cast the Rev in his own end step?
Yes.
That's pretty smart. He is playing around Skullcrack.
Right.
He's definitely aware of the possibility of a Skullcrack here.
Yes. And once the road was clear,
right,
he went for it. I mean, Luis definitely noticed that Mutavault didn't hit the red zone.
Yes.
It was only into 1 white untapped mana, white or blue, so there was nothing that Luis could have had.
Jace has been plussing too. So
it's true. It would have been 1 damage, but I mean, 1 damage matters. Oh,
blind
man.
Obedience.
Oh, that could do some work here.
Now we may see a sideboard card actually have an impact on the game.
Right. I mean, it did eat a couple of removal spells, I suppose.
But they weren't player damage spells.
I'm curious to see what happens in Game 3 if we get to that point here as well.
Right. No, I'm sure.
Like, does Luis
I'm sure he will shuffle his sideboard into his
here?
deck.
Yeah.
But then it's a question of, and he'll be watching to see if Dennis goes to his sideboard.
Right. That is a lightning strike.
Yeah, so blind obedience means creatures come into play tapped, which effectively blunts a lot of the haste creatures, just aren't quite as good. So that's dissolve for 4 with because the other thing that Blind Obedience has is extort.
Right.
Every time you cast a spell, you can pay a white or black mana in order to gain a life. I mean, drain your opponent for 1. Oh, by the way, deal a damage, but it's the life gaining that's particularly relevant here.
Right. I mean, every second or third activation of that thing, you're basically taking a card out of your opponent's hand.
Yep.
It gets
if your
out
opponent's
of hand
just
quickly.
pointing lightning strikes at your head, then yes.
Right.
That makes life gaining quite good.
So there's a War Leader's Helix to Luis's face there.
Yep.
All right, looks like we're underway in our main match, though.
I'm kind of curious to see how this ends.
I don't know what the life total is, though. It's like if Luis is at 12, I like where he's at. If he's at 3, this gets a lot more intense, right?
Yes.
Yeah, can you get us life totals, Rusty, if we're going to hang here for a minute? I am also curious.
I mean, Hain and Bogomis is the Esper Mirror. They'll be hanging out for a while.
That's true.
What is it?
Okay,
LSV's it 2?
that's more interesting.
And
oh, wow. So Luis goes for a big Sphinx's Revelation, I think against only 1 card in hand, freshly drawn, but it was just enough damage to get there thanks to Lightning Strike. So game 3 over there. But back on our main feature match versus 2 undefeated players, Hain ended up mulliganing to 4 this game.
And speaking of creatures in from the sideboard, here's Nightveil Spectre.
There it is. These are all just creature decks at heart. They put up a front.
Everyone knows what's up at this point.
Yeah. I mean, now we see post-boarded games. Now we see Nightveil Spectre versus Archangel of Thune here from both of these control players. The assumption here, Randy, being right that, well, they're going to pull out their Supreme Verdicts. They're going to be very light on creature removal.
Right, exactly. So in general, most decks have a lot of ways to deal with creatures.
Right.
Most standard decks are attacking you with creatures. That's just the best way to deal damage. It's really only the Esper deck. I mean, some of the Boros Burn decks are very light on creatures, but if you're, into an opponent who's got Doomblades or Chain to the Rocks or, a bunch of ways to kill creatures, you're sort of creating dead cards in their deck if you play a creatureless deck like Esper.
Right.
Well, the guy with all the dead cards, here's now Blood Baron.
Now it's just a full-on creature
Hain
fight
needs
here.
To, Supreme Verdict here.
Yeah.
I mean, is he
against his Aetherling opponent?
Right. Is he as smart as Dennis Taylor?
That is
the
question.
Leave everything in. Dennis Taylor's like, I've seen this enough. Chain to the Rocks. I'm not going to sideboard that out against my creatureless opponent. In fact, I'm going to sideboard in Fated Conflagration.
Yes.
I'm guessing most people have the Fated Conflagrations in the board.
Right.
Bring them in against the green-red monsters deck, or Esper apparently.
Or Esper.
His Fated Conflagration become a sideboard card to bring in against Esper.
Yeah, it was really funny. So Alex has to use his detention sphere just to stem the bleeding from the Nightveil Spectre, but of course that can't hit Blood Baron, so it's going to get to do its work. And it's doing that right now. Just hit Alex for 4. Jace follow-up play here for Kyle. Oh, man. Getting worse.
Blood Baron or land? Is that the split?
That was the initial reaction, but it looks like Alex is thinking it over now.
Oh, was that top on a land?
Yeah, it's 2 lands and a Blood Baron there. Interesting. Kyle's going to turn down the big threat, and he's just going to keep hitting his land drops here. I think he feels pretty comfortable that this Blood Baron isn't going anywhere, and as long as he can protect it, he's fine. I mean, Alex
and we saw in game
would
1
have
the power
killed
of
it.
hitting your land drops.
All right. This could be interesting. I mean, which one of these wins the race? Eventually that Blood Baron can get absolutely massive, but
I don't think
Alex,
he gets there with the
Archangel.
Alex
gets to keep bolstering his
life
life total.
wins this race.
But it takes a long time, right?
Yes. I mean, both creatures have lifelink.
Right.
But the Archangel is going to get steadily bigger.
Right.
And I don't think Blood Baron gets turned on.
I don't think so either, because Alex needs to be at 10.
Right, it'll attack here to drop Alex to 10, but Kyle will be only at 28.
Right.
Then it's 13. Yeah, Kyle also has to be at 30.
Right.
To turn it on. So.
And he's not quite there.
And the Archangel, he's not going to get there.
Right.
Almost.
So this is interesting. A 5-drop fight here in the Esper control deck. 2 big lifelinkers going at it.
Are you just supposed to leave your Supreme Verdicts in nowadays? And then what happens in game 3?
All right, so Kyle starts to rebuild, or starts to add to his board here with the Night Veil Spectre. You got to figure if you're...
What, so does one chump block actually turn Blood Baron on?
That's what I'm wondering.
If he
now.
chumps, Alex gains 3, but then he'll take 4, so he'll wind up at 9, and Kyle will wind up over 30.
Yes, but then his
the
Blood Baron's
attack,
tapped.
Right. Then the next attack, Hain goes up to 12 and gains a counter. No, I don't think a chump block's quite good enough.
No.
Well, not to get Blood Baron to be attacking in its bigger form.
All right, but Alex makes it a moot point and takes out the other Night Veil. No, he doesn't. Negate. Turns that plan sideways.
Hain has to attack here, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it means he's going to get hit by Night Veil Spectre.
Right, which is certainly not what he wants to do.
But it's better than just watching the pro-white Blood Baron sail by again.
Right.
Yeah, if Archangel plays defense, Blood Baron suddenly wins the race. That does not take a lot of look-ahead skill to figure out.
No.
It's funny. So Hain scries. If he'd seen a bad card, he would happily have left it on top for Kyle to get with the Night Veil Spectre.
Right.
So he must have, given that he pushed to the bottom, that probably means it was a good card.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Oh, gee.
That's a good card.
I was like, I could have let him have whatever it was I pushed.
Oh, man.
No, he gets an Elspeth.
Goes right underneath there. Now, Kyle has the mana to cast out right now, but Alex is definitely representing a dissolve here at the very least.
Yeah.
He actually has it for the Jays. You get to draw that one, Alex, so...
Yeah, Scry a little more effective at manipulating your draw step after Night Veil hits you.
Right.
Hain seems to be putting up quite a fight from mulligan to 4.
4? I can't believe he's even... I mean, he's even hit his land drops here.
Right.
Doesn't have as many cards in hand, of course, but...
Oh, my.
Oh, man.
Does that resolve? You're kidding.
No way that resolves. He gets...
You're kidding.
He gets to put counters on both here.
Of them. 2 counters on each.
And yeah, and this thing's going to get out of hand quickly.
Well, Elspeth is probably going to happen now.
And then he just blows up the world and then has to find a way to rebuild.
If he Elspeths and blows up the world, he blows up everything except the Night Veil.
Yeah, he gets to
it's
hit
actually
with
pretty
Night
nice.
Veil.
You can do that pre-combat.
Yes, and get it.
Depends whether he wants the Blood Baron hit or the card from Night Veil. I think I might like the card from Night Veil. All right, so he's going to summon Hain's Elspeth.
And does Hain have a negate or something?
Negate's about the only thing that can fight it.
Right,
nope.
and he doesn't.
Yeah.
Down they go.
The minus ability to blow up all the 4 power creatures. That's what he has to do against those 2 Archangels. Wow. That one Elspeth hit for the Night Veil. Hain, those 2 Archangels would have done it, I think.
Absolutely. That's ridiculous.
I really want to know what Hain pushed to the bottom. Can't possibly have been worse for him than Elspeth.
Than Elspeth.
But, I mean, what are the odds it's going to be Elspeth on top, right? There's probably, like, 2 Elspeths and an Aetherling as the, oh, my goodness,
out of his
please.
40 cards.
And Aetherling's not even that good if your opponent Night Veils it, because if they blink it, you get it back.
Right. He gets returned to the owner's hand. Or
board.
Battlefield, yeah.
Wow, Alexander Hain off a mulligan to 4. Put up quite the fight here. But his opponent, that one lucky hit from Night Veil Spectre to take Elspeth feels like the difference here. I mean, maybe Kyle's hand is gas and we just don't know it, but can't be that gassy if Hain resolved a pair of Archangels.
That's right, although Kyle does have 6 cards in his hand, something like that. I mean, he's got a full grip.
All right, next turn should do it. Duresses away a Revoke Existence, and Hain scoops him up.
All right, so we're going to get a game 3 here,
Yeah.
so that's nice to for
Speaking
us
of game
spectators.
threes,
Yep.
let's go peek in on LSV's
Yeah,
game
let's
3.
go see what's going on over there.
Fiendslayer Paladin.
Jeez, what is it? Esper mid-range creatures is here. Fiendslayer Paladin battling.
It's a nice one.
I haven't seen that in a while.
I've seen it in sideboards.
Mm.
It always seems like, oh, yeah, and then you imagine this matchup when you're building your sideboard where Fiendslayer Paladin's going to be awesome. Some of the Naya Hexproof deck has been running it, too, as, like, almost hexproof. Can't target it with red or black spells. If it wasn't for Chain to Rocks, it would be very close to hexproof.
I see.
Here, though, the lifelink is really nice.
Yeah, and Luis is
again,
going
you
to
can't
town
target
here.
it, yeah. I mean, Chain to the Rocks could grab it. We know that Dennis Taylor likes to leave those in.
It looks like Luis is taking a very proactive role here as he just played Elspeth, made 3 tokens, and is just kind of saying, like, let's race. I mean, I'm gaining 2 life a turn, and I've got 5 power here.
All right. I've got Boros Charm.
Interesting. Boros Charm goes to Luis, does not get redirected over to Elspeth, so.
Yeah. Can we get the life totals, Rusty? $13-12. LSV leads 13-12. Ash sell it. He's 1 token short of being able to beat up the Ash Zealot in combat. So he probably chumps that. But Chandra's going to fly over. The question is, who's she going to fly over and attack? Attacks Luis.
Both attack Luis. Luis chump blocks.
And there's a Fire Drinker Satyr.
That's dangerous.
Yes, it is. Yeah, 3 more tokens. That makes sense. You just keep attacking with Fiendslayer. So it should be 11-12. But Luis is going to go back up to 13. Yeah, so I've got, that should be 13-10.
Yes. There is a Mutavault down there, but.
Yeah, I mean, the Paladin first strikes.
Skullcrack, dissolve in
my.
response.
So Skullcrack would have turned off the lifelink ability from Fiendslayer and dealt 3 damage. Luis was not having it. Yeah, Dissolve's not going to get better than a 5-life swing.
Right.
Ooh, and the Detention Sphere for Chandra's Phoenix.
Geez, so Luis got
now
Vargas.
13-10, and there's no attackers that have a clear path.
Yeah, he's hitting on all cylinders here. He's got Elspeth going. He's got a Fiendslayer Paladin, a bunch of 1/1 tokens. And he's got Dennis's board whittled down pretty nicely here. Just 4 power on the board. You know, he just took a couple of damage off that Sacred Foundry. What does this mean?
It's a 13-8. I don't know.
And he shipped the turn back, too.
What?
I mean, he's behind in this race. He's got to be careful.
Yes.
Maybe he wants to have enough mana for a War Leader's Helix and also to be able to activate Mutavault. No, it doesn't look like he's going on Mutavault plan here.
Okay. Right. Well, the Ash Zealot first strike, so the Ash Zealot can trade.
Right.
And the, I mean, I think the Satyr's hanging out in case something goes wrong. So LSV does gain the life there, so he's up to 15, if I'm not mistaken. I think Dennis is down to 8. But, I mean, Elspeth's ultimate is going to win the game next turn. What did you leave all your mana untapped for?
A Magma Jet. But he's got to have something else, right?
Well, I mean, being able to pump Fire Drinker Satyr, he may have thought that he would have wanted that in combat.
Okay. But he took 2 damage for that? I mean, that's risky. Remember, pumping
agreed.
Fire Drinker Satyr also hurts you.
Agreed. Look, if you're the kind of guy who's going to show up, go 8-1 with Boros Burn, you're not afraid to take some damage.
You know, you're right. It's very true. All right, well, he decided to fire a Lightning Strike over at Elspeth to keep Elspeth from
Away
going
from
ultimate. Yeah.
Kind of has to.
Yeah, he just doesn't really have much
now
of a
the tokens
choice.
just
But
brawl. Don't think they are. Is he at 8? While Mutavault keeps him alive?
all right, so he does have that War Leader's
keeps him alive.
Helix.
He should also activate Mutavault to block one of them.
Is he not? No, he didn't.
Huh. Is there a pithing needle off stage? LSV's run out of LSV tokens.
Yeah, he did.
You know the game's going well.
He's used all the foil LSV tokens he carries around with him everywhere he goes. And Luis Scott Vargas is our victor there, so he stays at
9-1.
X-1, yep.
Yeah, Dennis Taylor, that was the loss he had to give.
Okay.
I mean, he's still in top 8 contention, still could qualify for the Pro Tour, but he's going to have to win the next 5 to pull that off.
All right. A tall order to be sure, but certainly possible. Back to our main feature match here, Alexander Hain versus Kyle Bogmus. Tied at 1 game apiece here. This is the Esper Mirror. Though we saw some weird stuff in the middle game. Everybody had a bunch of creatures. There was a couple Archangel Athunes. There was Night Veil Specters, Blood Barons all over the place. So the curious part to see here is how these players adjusted their sideboards in between games.
Yes. Kyle has a lot of spells in that hand,
which
is not actually what he wants.
Dissolve, Syncopate, double Elspeth, and a
and only
sphere.
1 land. That's the bad news.
Also, he doesn't have any white sources. Is that right? That's a watery grave there, right?
Yeah, that's not that relevant.
All right.
I mean, the blue spells are the ones you need to be able to threaten.
True.
Or any Thoughtseizes that he might draw. So here's Hain's Thoughtseize. We call this an Esper Mirror, but Hain's is barely black. It's Thoughtseize in the sideboard, Dark Betrayal in the sideboard. That's all he's got. But Thoughtseize is really good. Yeah, D-Sphere. It was either D-Sphere or one of the counters.
Right. One of the dissolves.
But the thing is, if your opponent is pinched on mana, then you just can blank those counters. You kind of trap them in his hand. Don't give him anything to point them at. I don't expect Alexander to cast spells for a while. If he's got the land drops that he wants, he'll just sit here, watch Kyle start missing land drops, and Kyle's going to just have to start discarding. Oh, there's a nice draw for Kyle.
It is. And, you know, these scry lands are really interesting for that because they can help keep the land drops flowing.
Yeah, I know. That's a very good draw.
All right, there's some pressure.
But he pushed, so must not have been a land. Is it another land? No.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Ooh, is Hain going to miss? Hain missed his. He stopped at 5.
All right, back to
Kyle's
even
deck
here.
Likes him. Played it untapped so that he could leave up Dissolve and Syncopate. And, you know, what are those 2 life points going to do for him?
Right.
Other than, you know, give him 2 counters 1 turn earlier. And, yep, Kyle has to start discarding. Here's the power of land drops.
Right.
Elspeth, and one of the most threatening cards in either of these deck lists, discarded.
And it's just miles away for Kyle Bogmus. Alexander Hain does manage to hit this land drop. It looks like he's back on track here. Is he going to battle?
Is he going to start casting spells? He's going to start activating Mutavault.
Yeah,
okay.
Get in there.
6 mana, he's decided, is the point where he can start activating Mutavault. He'll leave 4.
Those Mutavault hits add up very quickly in these scenarios. Kyle does find a land here, though. Ship's turn back. This time he plays it tapped, respecting the Mutavault. That's a whole turn. Does Alex find his land drop? I mean, this is... For those of you that watch a lot of coverage, you know how this is how these coverage or these control mirrors go. It's like, who's hitting their land drops, right?
That's and who's got the Mutavault? I mean, you can definitely see Mutavault deal 20.
Absolutely.
There was a match in the Grand Prix Melbourne top 8 where Mutavault did 18 for one side to win the game, and then the other guy returned the favor in the second game.
I was standing behind that one watching it. It's true. And right now, this Mutavault's already done 6.
Yeah. Hain plays 3 Mutavaults in his list. Kyle plays 2. So, I mean, even though they're 3-color decks, the Mutavault is so powerful in this matchup. And wow, Alex is discarding Archangel.
Now, you mentioned it that Alex is really much heavier towards the blue-white end of the spectrum.
Right.
Here.
I think that's why he's able to make room for 3 Mutavaults.
Root,
he's not trying to jam as much black mana into his deck.
Right. All right, here's Duress, though, for Kyle Bogmus, and he's going to get a look at what Alexander Hain's up to. He knows what his plan is on board. Obviously, he has 7 spells in his hand as he just discarded.
Elspeth, Dissolve, Syncopate, Jace, another
Aetherling.
Jace. Oh, there's an Aetherling.
Yep.
And one other card.
And then a Jace and something. Can't quite see what that last card
the one
is.
On top?
Yeah, the top one there. No, the other direction, Rashad.
Other top. What is it?
It's just covered up. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see it.
It's a gainsay.
Gainsay? Okay.
With the wrong art.
And the wrong frame.
New gainsay. Not as good as the old gainsay.
Yeah.
Good enough to get dressed, though.
Yep. Artwork aside, it's in the bin.
Other power of duress here for Kyle, though, is he gets a lot of information. Like now he knows what he's got to sort of fight through.
That's right.
Duress is a card. It's a 1-of for Kyle. So he goes to 3 Thoughtseize, 1 Duress. Alexander Hain goes to 3 Thougtseize.
So what is Kyle building up to here? I mean, he knows he's under constant pressure from Mutavault. What's his battle plan? How does he get out of this?
He needs to resolve the other Elspeth in his hand.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that he's got, Doomblades, Thoughts. I mean, finding his own Mutavault would also be very good.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, in terms of, he's got 3 turns to enter this Mutavault. Now he's got 2 turns to enter this Mutavault. I mean, he's got one of the 2 Elspeths still in his hand. That seems like the thing he would like to resolve, but he's got to get it through a Dissolve and a Syncopate. So maybe, I mean, the best way to start picking a fight is with an end-step Sphinx's Revelation.
Yes.
End of Alexander's turn, he goes for a big Sphinx's Revelation. Now Hain's put to the test. Does he want to use one of his precious few counterspells to stop that, or does he want to let Kyle draw a bunch of cards? I don't know that Kyle actually has a Rev, but...
And even beyond drawing cards, I mean, he's got Boggamus down to 4. He doesn't want to let him gain life somehow here. It's like...
Yeah, I think Alex would have to fight a big Rev. And the thing, yeah, you syncopate the Rev and leave up Dissolve, and now Kyle is going to have to go Elspeth plus a way to fight Dissolve.
Right.
Which he probably can. He's got, what, 1, 2, 3,
He's
6,
got 8 lands. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a close one. I mean, Kyle's also trying to decide if he needs to go for something now,
right?
Pick a fight, take a hit, and then
probably
see if he can push something through next turn. It might be too late at some point,
He goes main
right?
phase Elspeth with 2. You have to say no. You syncopate for 3, leave up Dissolve? Yeah, Alex can syncopate for 3 and leave up Dissolve.
He can absolutely do that. And that's what he does.
Kyle... I mean, was this one bait? I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't really work, right? Because since Elspeth is sorcery speed, passes a turn back, Alex gets the battle, put him to 2.
Kyle's going for it here. Okay, negate. Right. So he'll try to defend it.
So is he just trying to exhaust Alexander's resources
and then
here?
figure next turn he can actually resolve something.
Yeah.
I don't know what the second thing is, though. There's not that many Elspeths in his list.
Right, he already discarded one.
Dissolves, pushes to the bottom with the Scry. Now Hain's going to get to untap. Untap. Kyle's on tapped out.
Yes.
So Hain could resolve something here if he has something. Did he have an Elspeth in his hand?
I don't know.
Trying to remember. We haven't seen Kyle's hand in quite a while.
Right. He's only got 3 Elspeths in the main. I don't know if he has any in the board. He doesn't. So we know that 2 of his Elspeths are spoken for, both in this graveyard for Kyle's side there.
It looks like Hain is tapping. Oh, he's not going to attack with Mutavault here. Oh, my. Oh, right. He had Aetherling in his hand.
Right.
Right. So Kyle going for that there. I mean, he had to. He was just going to die to Mutavault. Right. I mean, this may look like, ooh, look.
Oh, he does have his other Elspeth, though.
He must have. If leading with the first one, it had to be bait.
But does this matter?
No.
That's just it, right?
Right.
Yeah, because he can just make his Aetherling unblockable and kill Kyle.
I mean, that's the power of Mutavault. What was Kyle supposed to do?
Right.
He had to do something to stop that Mutavault from just chipping away at his last life points.
Yep.
All he had access to was Elspeth, so you go for 1 Elspeth, run your opponent out of resources so you can resolve the other one. Problem was, Hain had his 1 Aetherling.
Yeah. So Mutavault did serious work. Welcome back to the booth, guys. Marshall Sutcliffe here with Randy Buehler. And you mentioned it that we saw